All right. A very warm welcome to everyone here. We are here to talk about the topic today on women in tech. The theme of our panel here today is women in tech. My name is Sana Sood. I am an associate at Equilibrio Advisory. We are here with two wonderful panelists, Deepthi Jetanandani, who is a client partner at NGS Global, a global executive search and leadership advisory service firm, which operates over 34 offices worldwide. She's based out of Bangalore and comes with many years of consulting experience in sales, media, marketing strategy, uh, from large to mid-sized clients across industries, including technology, manufacturing, consumer, retail, and emerging digital enterprises. A few years ago, she pivoted her career to executive search and leadership advisory to help large and as well as rapid growth enterprises augment and develop their leadership capabilities. Thank you, Deepthi, for being here, and thank you so much for being part of this panel. And we have Thank you. And we have here Dr. Subhita Tripathi. She's a senior AI researcher at Lens Inc., um, which is an organization which is research based on biomedical image processing, pattern recognition, computer vision, applications of deep learning. She's received a bachelor's in computer science and engineering uh, in Jammu and Kashmir, has a master's in software engineering from Birla Institute of Technology, and also has her doctorate. In the field of computer vision from Indian Institute of Information Technology. She also has worked in the past as an assistant professor at LNMIIT, Rajasthan. So thank you so much, Suvita, for being here as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And the three of us are here today to discuss on the topic of women in tech. As most of you might know, that the theme for this year for UN Women at Commission for Status of Women is digitally all inclusion of women when it comes to um, technology and involving technology. So today in this discussion, we would like to touch upon how can we include women when it comes to STEM research? How can we include women in the higher echelons of tech companies to be part of every stage of technology, right? Today, we are in a world that technology and AI touch almost every aspect of our lives, whether it's hailing a cab or ordering food, applying for a job, or even for a course or university, right? At every stage and step, we are interacting with technology and with the digital space and in the online space. And what we know from facts and figures is that almost close to um, 37% of women do not even use the internet worldwide. So when we are moving to a more and more digitally like active world, when women are left out of this space, how is that going to really affect gender equality and women in the large sphere? So we are gonna tap into the insights of these esteemed people here today and ask them questions around that. So would it be okay, Deepthi, that we can start off a little bit from you just to understand a little bit about what is it that clients really ask you, like when you go ahead and I mean they reach out to you, what are the trends that you generally notice when you receive these requests for hiring CXOs, and is there any subtle or prominent indicators when it comes to gender? Is it mentioned at all? So over to you, Deepthi.
Thanks, Anna. Yes, now in fact, our clients come back to us asking explicitly that they're looking for diversity in leadership and they would want to hire women. And it's our endeavor as well that when we present our list to long list of clients, we are looking at least 50% representation of women. Of course, we're looking at diversity. We're looking at other genders and overcoming the racial discriminations or anything else which comes in the diversity purview. Uh, Unfortunately, women, of course, are far and few in between, the entire we don't have that full representation in terms of tech, if we look at tech, or if we look at manufacturing, industrial, these sectors still lack women at leadership. Uh, we always tell our clients we can't manufacture talent for you, we can hunt talent for you wherever they may be. We really go deep down. We have a very cold structured process of doing that research and finding the women, and we have been able to find also quite successfully in areas where clients expected none at all, right? Even in areas like industrial manufacturing, tech, of course we are blessed, there are a lot of women available. But the industry trend has been that if you hire 10 women at the fresher level, six out of them drop out in the first 10 years of being in the workforce. Uh, so that's why I think return to work programs are helping out, right? Where women are taking a break, either for family reasons. Uh, Women tend to feel guilty, whether it's in laws, parents, their health, any family issues, having kids. And the first thing they do is drop out of work, right? So these return to work programs help. And a lot of these organizations have actually started specific programs to bring women back. And technology has been a forerunner in this. They are the leaders in this. Whether you look at TCS, IBM, SAP, all of them, they have these programs which actually upskill them, get them ready for the present technologies, and then get them back to work and at a pretty reasonable salary packages, which doesn't make them feel inferior or less from the peers or the younger generation that have come in already at workforce. So we definitely see a trend, and I think this is also regulated by government asking for directors at the board level. A lot of organizations committing to the fact that they should have 30% women in the lead at the leadership level. So I think it is a top-down effort that we can see, and due to which the emphasis on executive search partners like us, the mandate clearly says we need women to be hired, and it's very explicit. To answer your question very specifically, it's no more being minced, it's no more being given subtly to us. We are told I only want women, even if we have to compromise on one or two filters, not from education or expertise or competency point of view, but any other filters. Like, some women may not want to come to office every day, they may want to work remotely. So those kind of flexibilities are being offered now, and because they want women there. And mind you, women really bring in a lot of culture of innovation, inclusivity. They actually make the culture of the organization 10 notches higher when you have far more women in the organization. Your interview panels become more diverse, so you're able to attract talent even at the junior levels, because you can see some mentors there who can guide you in this entire process. I'll take a pause here.
Thank you so much, Deepthi, for that very overarching, that overview of the entire space, right? I can imagine working from this angle. You have that keen insight over various industries, whether it comes to, manufacturing or tech or even those so-called male-dominated spaces. So I can see a lot of insight coming from there. So thanks so much. Um, and I see that you raised a very interesting point about diversity and women, especially when it comes to the tech space. And here I'd like to bring in Subhita. Subhita, as a person who works deeply in the tech space, who's mostly you've had an academic career there, you've worked in the corporate, in the field of tech and AI closely. What has your experience been from a personal perspective as a woman in the STEM field, right? And have you noticed any difference for women in STEM from an academic perspective versus a woman in STEM from a corporate lens?
All right. Thank you, Sana. Uh, I have been a student for the last 5 years. So, particularly in academics, I have noticed that there is like, quite honestly, I've not been a part of any biases with respect to per se academics. So my supervisor was not at all biased towards my male counterparts relative to me, and he was very supportive, and I had been blessed actually. But the same could not be said about maybe other women or the other girl students who were there in my PhD with me. So they were like the supervisors were not very receptive of their opinions, or they are not giving time to their whatever they want to try, or whatever they want to discuss. So this has been there, but more than academics, I have it, I quite honestly, I don't think that supervisors or the PhD supervisors in India per se, they are of the thinking that women are less in academics or in intelligence. But there are other things that I have noticed on my part, and maybe my other counterparts, women counterparts, which was uh, you how do I put it very you know subtly, that things were not very what can I say in that sense, ki they were in some sense more not good sexually. So these were the things that I have noticed. People may have thought that I am a girl and I can be approached in some sense. So these were the
Okay.
things that I have faced, not with my supervisors, but the colleagues around him. So these were the things that I got to know from him, and these were the things maybe other students have also faced in that sense. But academically, if we are specifically talking about the intelligence part, we were not thought of any lesser than our male counterparts. Then, and due to that reason, few of the students, few of the girl students were, forced to drop out of their PhDs due to these reasons only, and none other than that. So these are the things that I've experienced in academia, and these things happen. And but in corporate, so I have also been an assistant professor for a year. So it was actually a very positive and a very good experience for me there. I did not feel any less than my male counterparts. I was given equal attention by my bosses there. So the HOD was a female, and she was equally receptive towards me than other males. So I believe that if we have women in the higher roles or in the higher positions, they are more equal in that sense than, for example, if there had been a male HOD, male head of that department. So this, I feel that being a woman in the higher positions would bring equal opportunities for everyone, and there will be no gender bias in that case. Um, so that was my experience as an assistant professor there, and I was very happy with the environment that I have been there. Then coming to the corporate, my current organization, it's a startup, right? So I believe startups are more open now for women leaders of women employees than they were before. So because it has been perceived that startups are actually very labor extensive. They require your days and nights, and women, as perceived, may not be able to give their nights as much as they could devote their time in the days, because they have other things to manage as well. So I'm a married person. I cannot wake up at 2 a.m. and deliver something to the client. So in that case, uh, my current organization, in that sense, it is aware that I have some limitations, and in contrary, on the contrary, they are very supportive of my status as a married woman. Yeah, you were speaking something.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know if it's me, but there was a bit of connection problem, like just 2 minutes before you started speaking. So if you could just repeat the last line that you just said, would that be all right?
Uh, Yes, yes. So, like, it has been a quite good experience, and my bosses here, my CEO and CTO, they are well aware of my situation, and they support me in all the sense, and they don't expect me to reply them at maybe 10 p.m. or 12 p.m., and they're very, courteous about the fact that I may not be available after working hours. But what is my responsibility during the working hours? I need to be dedicated towards the work. So this is what they expect, and that is genuine. So yeah, so in the corporate world, it's only been an year, and I have quite a good experience here. So yeah.
Thank you so much,
So,
Savita, and thank you for go ahead, Dipti.
so
Yeah,
but I
please.
had a question here. When you felt there was a bias during your PhD days, were there any
Mhm.
complaints raised uh, against those people who were actually misharassment?
Um, so it was not actually like physically abusive. It was mental harassment. And there were things that were said which were not true, or which does not represent my personality or my supervisor's personality. So it was things like, okay, that particular supervisor has only good looking students under him. So things like that. And maybe the some of the projects were so one of the project was let's say detecting porn content in the videos. So people were suggesting the students' name in those kinds of projects. Let's take her, and which was not required. It was not because we were intelligent. We were more intelligent than that, and they needed our expertise in those kinds of projects. It was like it was meant to be in that way. So it's these kinds of abuses, and maybe like um, you know how do I put it? So sorry, my English is not that very fluent.
No, no, absolutely fine. No, I get your point. I get your point. This is what we've been advising our clients as well, that HR policies, you cannot have a mandate that you need to hire women, but not have HR policies around it. Policies of
Right, right,
inclusion, removing the male, even while hiring, removing the masculine language out of it, make it very
right.
gender neutral. I think
Mm-hmm.
these are the kind. So this requires not just an HR leaders. It's not a role of just HR leaders. It's the entire organization, the entire leadership that has to come, very mindfully into creating this kind of an environment and policy which actually makes women comfortable at workplace.
Right. So actually, the problem with academic institutions, at least in India, is that we don't have any HR system. So there is not one person listening to our voice. So in that case, we have to approach maybe a committee that looks after this. But that committee is also comprising the people from the same environment, and they're the friends of each other. They would obviously support each other and not the students. So these kinds of things happen that the those complaints are never heard. So people, they are also like, even the boys are also mentally harassed in the PhD ecosystem. So but those complaints never get heard, and they get subdued because they have the leverage, because we want our PhD degrees, and they have that leverage. So in that case, in academic institutions, there is a much need of HR system that is which is unbiased, and take the complaints that can be heard. So, so why women are low in tech is that most of the women don't approach or don't go for higher studies, and those who do, some of them drop out. Not that percentage is very low, but they drop out due to these circumstances as well. Apart from the societal norms of marriage and childbearing, these are also some of the reasons why they drop out.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Savita, and thank you so much, Deepthi, for asking that reflective question, right? When it comes to women and tech and women and STEM, it's not always only an issue of, lack of interest, which is something that most people at least talk about, right? It's not just that you're not really focused towards tech or there's a lack of I mean, of course, those things do add to the conversation. When there's a stereotype that exists that women are not scientifically or technically, don't have that technical bent of mind and are better at humanities or more softer skills or softer subjects. However, there's also this element of safety, and when it comes to, having that inclusive space, like that respectful workplace.
Right.
So coming from there and from that lens, when we look at the fact that in a lot of organizations, right, like Deepti, you said one of your, I think I'd overheard you say one of your pet projects is to have more and more women at higher leadership skills or leadership levels, right? When we see that in organizations, mostly, when we look at the representation of women and they're mostly, unfortunately, at least till now, statistically, you can see that women are mostly represented in the lower echelons, right? And when we talk about tech and AI and how rapidly it is becoming omnipresent in every aspect of our lives, um, there is this level of hesitation and this level of uncertainty that now, when it comes to AI, will this now be taking up a lot of jobs which were otherwise, employed mostly women in these organizations? So, as a firm that kind of handles and deals with this, do you see this as an ongoing trend that AI and tech would now maybe be replacing these roles, or is this just kind of a rumor and a sort of let's say apocalyptic fear that we have?
See, AI is gender neutral. It is not looking at men or women at all, right? The jobs getting replaced, you have to upskill yourself, whether it's a man or a woman at job. Everybody has to amp up their own competency so that they can match the evolving trends in the tech sector. Women bring in very high level of EQ along with IQ, right? Today, if you see, for example, your phones or Apple phone, they're so intuitive, right? And there was some study that I read long ago that they will actually have product managers which are comprising more of women to bring that intuitiveness onto the phone, onto that phone. That's why it's far more friendlier today. So this is because of a higher EQ level, that intuitiveness. Women bring in that level of creativity that now organizations are coming to realize. To answer your question, will AI replace women jobs? No, AI will replace jobs, but you have to upskill yourself to be able to match that to that job. So yes, women would require time to spend on themselves, and unfortunately, women make themselves the last priority in their own life. So once they start prioritizing themselves, their own careers, their own education, I think we will not have that challenge. They, as I said earlier as well, they tend to give a little more importance to softer elements of their life, which is essential because they are holding the family together. But if now organizations commit themselves to investing in L&D for women, these women have an equal chance of ramping up on their own skills. And once they are upskilled, it doesn't matter you're a man or a woman, you're equally capable and competent for the job that is to be done. Right? So it is a commitment of organizations to spend on L&D. And now organizations are coming up with bite-sized learning modules. Most of the organizations are setting up their own learning centers where they say certify yourself, and there's such interesting gamified bite-sized modules that everybody can then actually spend time on themselves. 10 minutes a day you spend on learning a skill, in a month you'll have that certification. So it's about committing some time to your own self, which I think we have to encourage all women. Spend time on your own self.
I agree with you. Structurally and historically and socially, economically, it's always women who kind of put on, either through society we are forced, or there's kind of a heavy duty when it comes to unpaid work or care work or taking care of elders. Like you said, women come with a lot of guilt and a lot of social responsibilities. So it's good to be able to reframe that argument, not only from a personal perspective, but it's good to hear that even organizations are taking up that stance, where they're promoting these sort of activities. Very interesting to know. Thank you so much, Deepti, for that perspective. Um, right. So with that, when it comes to and this was again a very interesting point that Dipti raised about the fact that a lot of companies are hiring product managers who are women, right? Because when you hire diverse people and when you hire individuals who are not the stereotypical one from one particular gender or one particular category, you make technology more inclusive and something which can be adapted and used by any person, right? The more diverse the experience is going into forming the technology, the more usable it is for all individuals, right?
Yeah.
So like right now we know, I think the percentage what I recently heard or came across was like about 22% of women are in the tech sector. So when we have less than like one third of individuals in the STEM field who are women, do you know of any kind of like initiatives that are being taken or any sort of kind of like programs where in the STEM field where organizations are trying to diversify their workforce to include more women and people from different genders?
So in particularly the corporate, if I say about the corporate world, so I haven't actually heard about any women specific hiring processes or inclusions. But I know few companies that and the name of the company is not on top of my mind, but few companies they actually go to the campuses and they ask for women employees or they ask for women students to apply. And there is like 50% ratio that they need, or more than 50, even more than 50% ratio that would they need in their organization in the tech space for the women to be their workforce. So in that case, there are few companies that are encouraging of the fact, and but as per the like the focused programs, I did not have like I do not heard that about them. So that is there, but there are some governmental schemes that are at play there, so that particularly in the research field that empower women in the form of scholarships or the programs, or you as Deepthi said that coming back to the workforce after a pause. So those kinds of scholarships are there for the women, these technical people, and they can avail that, or but the knowledge about them is not very well known. So people actually don't know about them and they cannot take advantage of that those schemes. So for example, there is a scheme called Vigyan Jyoti, which was launched by the Department of Science and Technology. And then there are several SERB SERB schemes that are at play there for the women entrepreneurs as well. So they promote entrepreneurship as well for the women in tech space. So these schemes need to be relayed to the general public so they are well known and they can be taken advantage of. So, but yeah, coming back to your question, the dedicated programs in the corporate world, I am not very well aware of that.
Thank you.
So
And just for, sorry, I
I'll
didn't
add
mean
on
to.
there.
Yeah.
There are programs in corporates, especially in tech, where most of the large organizations have these return to work programs for women and specific asks for, hiring women at all levels. So I think they are making a very concerted effort out there, and this, of course, come from the NASCOM Council. There is women councils. Government is encouraging organizations to do that, and I think generally a consensus is there that all organizations will make an effort towards it. So there are enough and more. And I'm so happy to know about the academic programs. I wasn't aware of those that they're giving. So
Yeah.
which is quite encouraging at that level as well.
Yes.
Absolutely.
There are quite many actually that so say let's say that the person has done her PhD and she then moved on with her life with marriage and childbirth. So she has a gap of maybe 2 to 3 years or maybe more than 5 years. So in that case, there are certain programs by the government of India that she can. So those programs are particularly for those kind of women only, and they can apply for that scholarship and they can return to the workforce. So they will be paid through that scholarship as well as given the job in that space.
Very, very interesting to note. And thank you, both of you. Just for us to understand a little bit better, I think, Suvila, you used the acronym SCRP. Could you just tell us what the full form of that would be?
Yes, so it's Science Education and Research Board, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like basically a STEM field only, and
Right.
and they give out scholarships for the new projects as well, and they have women-centric scholarships as well.
Got it. Great. Thank you so
And this
much.
is for India, but there are other scholarships as well that are given worldwide. And so there is Marie Curie Research Fellowship. So you can avail those fellowships and move ahead with your research work into the in Europe particularly, and other internationally known organizations that give out those scholarships to women. And you can continue your research, or you can continue with your job given that benefit of fellowship. So in case if you are not very well financially, then you can go with those scholarships and continue your education.
Thank you so much, Smita. Thank you for that insight and for that information. Um, Deepti, I'd want to ask you, since you did mention before as well that there are certain government regulations in place, like for instance, a SEBI regulation where you need to have certain percentage of women who have to be at executive levels, and there has been like a certain level of criticism that when it comes to these sort of initiatives, it's kind of like a tip box. I mean, there's a differing view about it. Of course, some people say that just the mere fact that there is a regulation means that it's going to definitely positively affect the organization. But certain people have also mentioned that when it comes to big industries, they've either hired or appointed relatives, or that certain percentage, and those women don't end up really having a say when it comes to decision making. Do you think that's the case, or do you think that when they are hired, there's actual inclusion, or they are able to speak? I mean, just from your insight and your perspective. Yeah.
So SEBI definitely requires you to have one, if I'm correct, one woman director, independent director on the board. That is all that they're asking for. Many a times, yes, Indian organizations have put their relatives, wives of the chairpersons or daughters out there. Over the years, we're generally seeing the exposure and education levels of women increasing, and they do have a say. And see, as an independent director, you're coming with a certain set of responsibilities, right, that you need to comply with. Uh, in I think 2 years ago, I don't recall it. The government is now going to make it mandatory for you to be a qualified person to be on the board. I think this is coming in 2 years ago. COVID happened. I'm not sure where that regulation now lies. But yes, now you're required to qualify an exam to be a director. I think there's a time given to it for everyone to adhere to it. So either it's next year or in the next year or two. I think that will make the process far more robust. But when women are, brought in the workforce at leadership level, it is not a mandate by SEBI. It is an effort that boards are committing to, that we need women in leadership, right? Today, if you make that a mandate that I need 30% women at leadership, that's the quota that's being given to many of these chairpersons of any organization. How would you get that 30%? If out of 10, 6 women drop out during the first 10 years of their working life, you will never have that figure at leadership. So what you need to do is you need to keep scaffolding it. You will ensure you make an ecosystem where women can actually thrive, right? So instead of six dropouts, you may just have two or three which are absolutely driven by circumstances that cannot be avoided. So we have those 7 women going up. Out of those seven, then they would become managers. That's how you will start meeting your quotas, and that's how you'll have women at leadership. But if you'll have them, and what do you need to do for that? You need to make policies which actually encourage them to be at workplace, which encourage them in spite of the circumstances they are surrounded with. The policies are so inclusive, so friendly in nature. There's no, like Suvida mentioned, harassment, unsaid harassment, something which is done in a very subdued form. And Now we have posh policies. That's sexual harassment. Do we have policies around mental harassment? Overtly, no. But if HR leaders are recognizing it and making it today, you can actually file a complaint even for mental harassment. If those are actually being heard of, then you won't have these women dropping. Many a times, women would hold themselves to lodge a complaint because they feel they would be actually blamed in the end, right? They are scared to bring it up to the fore. So, making an environment which is conducive for them to speak up, to stand up for themselves, and having women at leadership who actually support them and mentor them, that's what you need. You need a community of strong women to take you from here to here. That's what we're looking for. And India is coming around. This is also existent in US or European economies, but yes, India was lagging behind. But now I think the lot of MNCs coming to India, a lot of women entering the workforce today, all of them want to be independent. There are many more leaders, women leaders who are there, who are actually making this their passion project to make sure that we hire women. Today, if they go to campuses, out of 10, they want to hire 7 women. Today, actually, surprisingly, you'll see if you go to a fresher batch, women are definitely hired out of tech and STEM space.
Yes.
Men may not be hired, but women are definitely going out with 100% jobs. I think these are concerted efforts, but we have an argument there that maybe they're not good enough and you're still hiring them. See, the attitude is that what matters the most. I think women bring in that dedication and that attitude at work, which I will not say is superior to men, but is at par with men. They're not really wasting and faffing away time. So, with that mention, I'm not available after work hours in the evening at 2 a.m. at night. But that's all right. But I'm sure when they are at work in the morning 9 to 6 p.m. or 7 p.m., they're they're not really going for smoke breaks. They're not really going for just chat breaks. They're really working and giving in their 100%. There would be men that would be available after 7 p.m. working. They would go out for a drink. Then they would be available to take those calls. That does not determine the productivity of a man versus a woman. Productivity is what the goals were and has the person really met those goals, right? That should be your litmus factor that test whether women are really successful at work. That objectivity with our HR processes is coming in. It really has to ramp up a lot more. It has to become more objective and more inclusive in nature. But I think we are on that trajectory now. And women, and forget women or men, all leaders are recognizing this, and some things have to be done by force, and I'm glad those regulations have come in where you need to have that percentage of women, so at least people become more conscious and make that effort towards it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Deep. Thank you for that. Now that we're talking about ever evolving laws and regulations, now let's move to ever evolving tech, which most of us can't really keep up with. So, Subhita, from a person from a tech field, right? For those of us who aren't really like that well aware or that always involved or understanding what the new technology is, do you have any kind of tips or any kind of insight that how is it that for the rest of the general public, how do we keep abreast with the ever evolving technology? There is historically and stereotypically a lot of people say that women have this hesitation when it comes to using technology or maybe being as friendly with technology, right? So how do we really remove that now that we know technology is there to stay? How do we really become friendly with technology and how do we really bridge that gap?
Yeah. You rightly said that women hesitate with technology. That is one of the reasons that why women are not hired. One of the reasons that why women are not hired as much as the men are, because whatever you say, like we don't lack in intelligence, but we lack in the awareness part a lot, and we don't have that general, inclination towards uh, knowing or updating ourselves. So in that case, when you are in the tech space, you need to, because technology, I know, is getting change or changing every day. So right now, if I'm working, I'm reading one research paper, I may not be updated about the other research papers that are already ahead of their time. So in that case, we need to read a lot and keep up with our counterparts. And in that case, we can the very friendly medium for in that case would be we should connect with the social media. So in that case, like maybe connect with the Facebook pages or the Instagram pages that or so there are actually pages or the LinkedIn communities that are promoting technical contents or the blogs and vlogs. So in that case, so there are some websites like medium.com. They write technical blogs in a very layman terms, and it is very easy to understand for a graduate or an undergraduate student. So if the person is interested, we should always connect with the social media or the blogs that are floating around. Then we should prioritize learning. Obviously, if we don't have that interest, we will never be able to get ahead with the changing times. So we should always prioritize learning. We should have that interest that I need to know everything out there. Obviously, that is not possible, but that zeal should be there to know everything around what is happening around. If the person around me does not know about Chat GPT, I may give him or her a smack right there. So even my husband, who has nothing to do with the tech space, knows about ChatGPT. So everyone should know that what is evolving around to know that how the person can upskill themselves. So Deepthi rightly said that no one is replacing the jobs. Only you will be responsible for replacing the jobs, because you we need to upskill every day and we need to learn a lot in a very short amount of time. Then again, if after prioritizing learning, we need to share and communicate. So if I know something, I need to discuss it with others around me. So in that case, I'll also gain others' perspectives. I'll also gain others' opinions. So in that case, I will also be included in that community. So if women are not getting included, that is because we have that hesitation of sharing, and we have that hesitation that we may be wrong in that case. If you're wrong, let it be, but share your opinion. You will get corrected. Obviously, male counterparts has that ability to correct you then and there. So in that case, you will be mansplained. So, but always share your ideas with your peers. Then you can also watch TED Talks. So there are many influential women speakers out there in TED Talks that talk about technology. You will be inspired through them, and you will you will feel that you need to get there at that level to maybe present your ideas in the next TED Talk. So all these things, you can listen to podcasts. So if you are like a very ardent radio listener and you are traveling, you can listen to podcasts. So these are some of the pointers that may keep you abreast with the current technology, and certainly that's the need of an hour. You cannot lag behind.
Thank you, Sarita. Thank you for that insight.
Yeah, that will be all.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like what I'm gathering from both you and Deepthi, right? There is no excuse these days. People need to really upskill themselves and give that dedicated time and motivation to learn,
Correct, correct.
right? At every point of time, whether it's for the fear of your job being taken away or for being prepared for what's there to come, you know?
Yeah.
So I do hear that.
And
Um,
also like you need to be willing to be like experimental. So like maybe you have read about chat gpt, but if you don't like go out there and use the website, you will never understand what is behind that chat gpt, why is it taking those jobs. So you should be willing to experiment, and you need to be get in depth of the things that you are interested in. So yeah, and if you're like maybe going out in the traffic, you see a camera, you can think about that why the camera is there and how can it be benefiting to the traffic police. Then you can go and read in the Google or me and the blogs like that, that why, what is traffic surveillance and how your private data is being shared around. So all these things you need to be aware of, so that maybe you go out to a restaurant, right, and you share your you we all often share our phone numbers with those restaurants. I don't know why they ask for those numbers, but we, without giving any thought about, without giving any second thought, we share our numbers. Those numbers are being taken and are circulated, and then we get the spam calls. So those numbers are being actually bought out by some scamming agencies. So you need to be aware in that case, women particularly, because because it's a proven fact, it's a statistics that women get scammed more easily than men. So in that case, awareness is the only option, that we should be adamant that I am not giving you my phone number, and there is no requirement for that. So all these private data, what do these companies or restaurants do with the private data, we need to be aware of that.
Absolutely, Sudha. And thank you for that. Absolutely. With more and more access to online spaces, being present more online in the digital space, I think people are now understanding digital rights and data protection and how it's really becoming an important aspect, right? Till now, it was only the physical assets that we really cared about. But now, protecting your data and being aware of what your digital rights are, is your data being shared with anybody, is also a very, very important and integral part of our understanding of, tech and our lives in the digital space now.
Yes.
Um, I see that we've had this really enriching, like 1 hour discussion. I'd like to go ahead and say that, are there any reflections, any kind of closing remarks, anything that you think, um, that we should add on? Of course, this conversation can just go on and on. I could hear both of your insights for a long, long time. But is there anything that you think that, some like takeaway or something that you think that would be a last interesting thing to kind of leave out there for the audience to kind of ponder on? Over to you,
See,
Deepthi.
so to take, to take on from what Suvida mentioned on ChatGPT or the kind of software that are coming up, coming back to the question of AI and tech, human mind is far more intelligent. What is AI doing? Is studying the patterns, studying the millions of patterns that are available. But a mind can think and process much faster creative ideas. So creativity is a mindset. As long as you remain creative and you're ready to learn, as Subhida said, you prioritize L&D for yourself, you will be able to go surpass this entire, AI tools that are coming up. It's actually humans that are designing it. It's not that the AI is designing it itself, right? So when you can do that, you can always be ahead of the AI tools. You can be ahead of technology. And I feel women should be more confident. That's where awareness, as Suvida mentioned, uh, being confident out there, share your ideas, experiment. There's nothing, women don't lack anything. Women can be equally or as good as leaders as men, or maybe sometimes better than them as well, because they bring in a higher EQ. And today, EQ is valued far more than IQ. Right? So, I think important is to encourage the women in our own communities, our peers, our juniors that we hire, encourage our daughters, our sisters to study further, spend time on themselves, work, and you can be there wherever you wish and aspire to be.
Thank you so much, Deepthi, for those inspiring words. So, without any last comments, thoughts, anything that you'd like to leave us with?
Yes. So while actually researching, I was researching today about the statistics of women in tech. So I came across an interesting fact that India actually is fairly doing very well in that space in comparison to the world. So in where, because we have at least 43% of STEM graduates being women in India, in comparison to only like 34%, and in United States 31% in Canada, and 38% in UK. So these are very developed democracies, and but we are actually faring very well in that sense. The only thing that we need to do is we need to take those graduates and upskill them with the current technology, because those graduates are only reading the courses that are prescribed. So in that case, we need to upskill them. India has actually technical skill programs that enable people of all genders to upskill themselves. So we need more women enrollment in those. We need them not to drop out after graduation, and we need to actually come over those gender stereotypes and give time to women to actually go out there, get the job, get hired instead of marrying them off. And then only we can actually include more women. Then obviously after graduation we need to let them give them opportunity to go for higher education, because STEM is largely research, and in that case you need to get your PhDs and your MTechs, or after your graduation. Then only you can go into you can go to the higher positions. So you can get hired as a graduate, but to you go to a higher position, you need to again get a higher academic degree. So to avoid those PhD dropouts, we need to have those programs that can remove the biases and those harassments which are at play at the academic institutions. And believe me, I am from a very well-known technical institution, and it's a government organization. It's not a state government or a public university, but it's one of the NFTIs, and I am from one of them, and it's at par with IITs and NITs. But it's there, and I have been, a victim of that. Not a very, it was not a very large part of my life, but I have, observed those things. So, and it is also predominant in high institutions like IITs and NITs. So all these things need to get better, and for us to, move ahead with our degrees and go into the academic institutions or to the corporate world.
Thank you, Suvita. Thank you, both of you. I've gained a lot of knowledge, a lot of insight. I mean, over a lot of points, but I think the main takeaways, what I've gathered is upskill yourself. Don't hesitate when it comes to technology. Be experimental. And as much as it comes to technology and space and women in any field, I think safety and security and making sure an inclusive and safe space is there for anybody and everybody and a respectful workplace is a key thing to
Definitely.
maintain. So thank you both of you for your time, for sharing your knowledge, your insight, um, and and thanks so much. Okay, have a very
Thank you,
good
Sana.
evening. Thank you. Bye bye.